Are you looking for the best 2024 NFL Week 8 DFS advice around? Then get ready for the live Week 8 IDP Plus DFS podcast. Welcome into the show. It is Week 8. It is DFS Christmas. I'm here with my buddy Jameson Hutchinson. We've got a 13-game DFS main slate. It's the first time since Week 2 and the only time we'll get a 13-game main slate until at least Week 18, and that's Week 18, so you know what that means. We got a lot to talk about. Jameson, how you doing, buddy? You ready to get this going?
I'm doing good. I'm ready. We're using a new studio, so if we mess up, just forgive us. But it's
Bear with
just
us.
before we got National Tight End Day, so it seems like
Oh,
I don't know if that's actual analysis or not, but we do have some tight ends to go over and talk about. So I'm excited for it. We got a lot to get into.
hashtag analysis on National Tight End Day. All right, we got a lot to talk about, so let's get right to it. We're going to start with the early games. One of the biggest games of the day is Eagles at Bengals. T. Higgins is doing T. Higgins things. He was doubtful. Now he's kind of questionable. They're saying he might play. This could be a disaster for best ball. This could be like a Deebo Samuel thing last week where he just plays like 3 snaps, does nothing, but you don't get the swap. So this is really worrying. But there's a lot of good stuff in here. So how are you attacking this one?
Let's see. You talked about Debo Samuel. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure. So we got Debo Samuel. We've got the 49ers and the Cowboys for the night game. So it's a little goofy, to say the least. We've got both. I think it's a good running back slate for Rico Dowdle and Jordan Mason, but the rest of it just kind of goofy.
Yeah. So let's get to the Eagles and Bengals. I was talking about
Okay.
T. Higgins.
Oh,
Um,
you said
super.
that's my bad. It said Debo Samuel, and I was like, oh, that's kind of weird. But like I said, we got a new studio. Everything is throwing me off. So, um, no, the
Yeah.
Eagles and the Bengals, the Jamar Chase, I think, is the big picture here. So I think for a lot of it, T. Higgins, he's done this a couple times. So he gets hurt late in the week, and then if he goes out there, he kind of ends up being a decoy, and it just kind of messes up a little bit of how you're going to attack this. This game's already pretty expensive to begin with, and then when if you're talking about Joe Burrow and his 300 yards and the 3 touchdown thing, a lot of that goes with T. Higgins. So if he's not playing, I think Andre Yoshivas is the next person to kind of step up here. And then on the other side of it, Jalen Hurts has got the tush push narrative. AJ Brown, since coming back, he's been an absolute destroyer of the world. And then you had Devontae Smith last week who put up a big goose egg. So I think people will be scared to play him. Bengals defense has gotten a lot better, but they haven't really played very good competition. So going up, I know the Eagles' offense hasn't been very good, but it's I don't know. This is a game I'm very excited to attack, and I'm trying to get some ways to do it. We do have some, I don't want to call them free squares, but some cheaper options like Jalen Waddle, who we'll get to in a little bit. But it's uh, it's interesting. I'm going to try to play Jalen Hurts doubles today and play it with Jamar Chase and kind of punt the rest of the my rosters here. But I like AJ Brown. I like Jamar Chase too, but I think he ends up being pretty expensive, kind of tight squeeze to fit in.
Yeah, I did want to get some. I do want to get some Chase exposure just because with Higgins out probably or limited. I was comparing T. Higgins to what Debo Samuel did last week, and that
Okay. Well,
just being active but only playing 3 snaps. I mean that's just an absolute killer.
yeah, that's well, it's my fault because the audio went out for a second, so I heard Debo Samuel, and I thought we were kicking off the sun. So, like I said, I apologize. That's totally on me. But
It's all good. It's all good. Yeah, so I do want to get some Chase exposure, even though he is extremely expensive at 9,200 on FanDuel and 85 on DK. But yeah, I still want to get. I think he may be the best play of the day. Just scoring wise, even though maybe not value wise, but I just want to get some access to that. I do like Devonta Smith. Like you said, he kind of almost. I think he had 1 catch last week, so he almost goose egged. There were a lot of like landmines last week, and he was one of them. So yeah, I think he's in the spot for a good bounce back game. I like the entire Eagles offense. I like Saquon. I like AJ Brown. I like Hurts. How are the Eagles underdogs in this game? That's what's kind of stunning to me. I just don't get it. Should go through the line on this game. Eagles are 2.5 point underdogs and a 47.5 point total. So a 22.5 point implied total, 25 for Cincinnati. I just don't get that line. Maybe this is one of those times where Vegas knows more than I do, but I don't understand that line. I don't understand how the Eagles are underdogs in this game.
No, it doesn't make a lot of sense. And the Eagles' offense, like I said, has just been really disappointing. The one guy we haven't talked about who ends up being, honestly, probably a really good play ends up being Saquon Barkley. I don't think anybody's going to. I think there will be some opportunities to pay up for some running backs, but I think people will go to the big dog Derrick Henry or like Joe Mixon, who's going to have some ownership in an awesome spot as well. But, I mean, Saquon, outside for the Bengals defense, it's Trey Hendrickson and friends. And if something were to happen to Trey Hendrickson, the rest of the Bengals defense just kind of collapses as far as pass rush goes. So I know that the Eagles, Mulata is out for a little bit. He's on IR. So the left tackle kind of an issue. But it's really just been Jalen Hurts. He just hasn't played very good football. And like in a perfect world, do you think this game would kind of shoot out a little bit? But it's like I still want to play it. It gets very expensive, like I said, and it's just kind of hard to pick your spots. I think for me, the easiest way to do it is play Jalen Hurts. You can play. I built a team with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith and bring it back with Jamar Chase, but it takes up a bunch of your salary and you get picked into, certain plays the rest of the way. But I think if you want to get some leverage on the rest of the field, I think Saquon Barkley ends up being an awesome pivot play on this slate.
Yeah, I agree. I think most people are going to go to the AJ Brown side. So Barkley could be a good pivot. All right, let's move on to the next game. That is my beloved Green Bay Packers traveling to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. 49.5 point total. That is currently the highest total of the week. Green Bay is a 4-point favorite, so 26.75 implied total for them. Jacksonville 22.75 implied total. I'm nervous about this game. This game has got trap game written all over it. Packers are in between Houston. They've got a big game with Detroit next week. Going to Florida where they never play well. It's going to be 80 degrees. Jags are getting some players back. They're getting Tyson Campbell back. They get Foye Oluokun back. I am like, if the Packers just come out of this game with a win, I'll be happy because, like I said, this has got trap written all over it. But for DFS, a lot of fun stuff in this game. How are you attacking this one?
I love the Jordan Love stuff today. I think he's going to end up going under 10% owned. And, of course, as far as the pass catchers go, it ends up being, the Russian roulette, just kind of pick one and hope it sticks. For me, I feel like I've played it the same way, Jaden Reed and Romeo Dobbs. But if it ends up being anybody else, like I said, if you want to lean into the Tucker Kraft national tight end narrative, this Green Bay Packers wide receiving core, it's very hard to analyze which one is going to go off each week. And the Jaguars defense ranked 32nd. It's been terrible. But like you said, they got some people coming back. I want to play the Jordan Love stuff, and it just, I don't have a very strong lean on who to pick. I would lean Jaden Reed. And then if you want to bring it back, Evan Ingram is very interesting. I don't think anybody's going to play him. And Brian Thomas Jr. has been awesome this year. Because Gabe Davis has been on the field, they end up kind of working Brian Thomas Jr. around a little bit instead of just sticking him in one spot and letting him go, because that ends up being the Gabe Davis role. So they've gotten a little bit creative with him. And then I just think that, like I said, I'm not sure if this game would actually shoot out or how much Jordan Love would actually have to push it. But, if they kind of go back and forth, I think this environment sets up really well.
Yeah. There's a lot of good kind of punt play wide receivers. If you want to get different, I know I talked about him last week and he didn't come through, but this game sets up perfectly for Christian Watson. The Jags play a lot of man defense. They're like third in the league in man coverage. They're last in blitz rate. They do not pressure the quarterback. So that sets up really well for a Christian Watson game. Jordan Love is the highest blitzed quarterback in the league right now. Teams are just coming after him, but that is not Jacksonville's plan. They do not like to blitz at all. He's the best. He's the best quarterback in the league by a lot of metrics when he's not blitzed, but he kind of struggles when he is blitzed. So teams are like throwing extra rushers at him. If Jacksonville doesn't, if they kind of stick to their script, then this is kind of a situation where you could really see a big Christian Watson game. I do like Dentavian Wicks as well, just because he's a better man receiver as well, as Christian Watson and Jags play a lot of man, like we said. So I like both of those guys this week as lower priced options at wide receiver. The one guy who could kill me this week is Josh Jacobs, because I'm not taking him anywhere. And like I said, if this game gets out of hand for the Packers, he could just be in that closer role. I just don't see it. I think this is going to be a close game. I'm like I said, I'm very nervous about it. So I'm not owning Jacobs. So a little nervous about that, but we'll see how that plays out. So
Yeah.
all right.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
just real quick, I believe Travis Etienne is out. So if you end up playing
Doubtful.
Tank Bigsby, if the Jaguars just kind of hang around, I think Tank Bigsby can get there. He gets no receiving work, so I mean he is just a straight line.
Yeah.
You got to play him in a certain game script, but he's actually been pretty viable. I say that as somebody who went 0 RB in one league, and I've had to start him since week 1. So if anybody is able to analyze Tank Bigsby, I think it's me, just because he sucks so bad. But it's like I said, I'm glad you bring up the point. I think a lot of people would see this game and just seem this is like a Green Bay blowout. But, we see this in the NFL all the time. These trap games, it looks easy on paper and it kind of ends up. I mean, Jordan Love has thrown the rope pretty, narrow in some of these plays, and some of these awesome throws that he's made could have easily been picks. And,
Yep.
you get into kind of a game environment where, Jaguars get one and just kind of gets a little goofy from there and they kind of hang around.
Yeah, I mean, they should have blown out the Texans last week, except for the 2 interceptions he threw, and obviously that terrible punt return that turned into a turnover. So without the turnovers, I mean, they would demolish Houston last week, and Joe Mixon was the only part of their offense. So I like the Bigsby call as well, because the Packers' run defense still not great. It's okay, not great. All right, let's move on to the next game, and this is the game that I think everyone is looking forward to this week. The Cardinals at the Dolphins. We get the return of Tua. Let's see. Arizona is a 4-point underdog on the road, 46-point total. So 25 Miami, implied total 21 for Arizona. Arizona's got to go cross country. They got to play in the early window. They're coming off a Monday night game, so they got short rest. Tua's coming back. Obviously, we're going to talk. Tyreek Hill is the play of the week. I mean, I think he's going to approach like 60, 70% played in cash, I think, this week. So how are you attacking this one?
Well, like you said, we've got some chalk pieces. If you're playing over on FanDuel, Jaden Waddle ends up being 5,900, which ends up being, I feel like to play some of these guys. Tyreek ends up being really cheap. He's going to be chalk. I think he's a great play, even in GPPs if you just kind of work around it. And then Devon Achane ends up being pretty nicely priced as well. On FanDuel, he ends up being 6,800. And then over on DraftKings, just give me a second, he kind of ends up being pretty decently priced too. So 6,800, I believe. Let's see. Or 6,200, excuse me. But I think the way to play this, if you're going to be playing the Dolphin stuff, add Tua to it, because I think people are going to pick pieces from the Dolphins and not add Tua. And we've seen these Tua blow-up games. I know they didn't do it before he got injured. The offense has been goofy, but Cardinals defense has been really bad. This whole team is basically underwhelmed. But a couple guys, Raheem Mostert would be awesome leverage off the rest of this. We've seen it last year where he ends up getting the touchdowns, like he ends up a 2-touchdown game while Devon Achane gets all the work. And then, like I said, Tua as well. On the other side for the Cardinals, Marvin Harrison Jr. has not gotten there. They have not been on the same page, him and Kyler Murray. Trey McBride has kind of underwhelmed. He's been good as far as tight ends goes, but as far as his ceiling, it's been a little goofy. The one guy I'm really interested in today is James Conner. When that offense for the Arizona has worked, it's been because of James Conner and them getting it rolling on the ground. So if I wanted to play this stack and have a bring back, I think I'm going to bring it back with James Conner. I think that would be my preferred play instead of these pass catchers.
Yeah, I wrote up Tyreek Hill in the article this week of the DFS top plays on IDPplus.com. I mean, this is once in a lifetime pricing on a guy like Tyreek Hill. I mean, 7,600 on FanDuel, 7,000 on DK. You will never see him priced like this again with Tua in the lineup. So, I mean, you got to take advantage of this. I think in tournaments, you may almost have to go off him just because he's going to be so highly owned. I mean, to differentiate yourself, you're going to have to kind of find somewhere else to go, which is kind of scary because he could blow up and kill you. But I mean, if you want to play game theory wise, you almost have to find somewhere else to go. Other than that, I agree with you. You should be stacking Tua. You should be stacking Tua with him. Maybe that's how you get different. Maybe teams, the rest of the field is going to go with Jalen Hurts or something like that. So yeah, I mean cash games. I think he's almost a must start, and I think he's, like I say, he might be 60-70% owned in cash games.
I'm playing two Dolphins in cash. I'm playing Achane and Tyreek together. I think if you end up playing Waddle with them, I mean, what you can, it ends up, you can fit like Jamar Chase in that lineup. I know on FanDuel you can because I've messed with it. It just, as far as the tournament plays goes, all these other Dolphin pass catchers are going to be, 20% plus owned in like tournaments, and then Tua is going to be under 10%. So that's the way that you get different. Let's say the Dolphins go off, and it's not just those, you're bringing Tua with them. So it's really goofy, like you said. You're not going to see these prices, and I'm going to be honest. I don't know what FanDuel did this week. We're going to talk about it in a little bit. Dalton Kincaid is 4K,
Yep.
like min priced. Jalen Waddle is 5,900. I mean, he's a 6,500 7K wide receiver, and they knew that Tua was coming back, so it shouldn't be. It doesn't make any sense. But like I said, I think the different way to do this is just play Tua with the rest of the guys and hope it kind of goes off. And like I said, Mostert is great leverage off anybody playing, say, Tyreek and Achane, if he's the one that ends up getting the red zone stuff.
Yeah, that's a good point. I also like Trey McBride as a bring back in this game. He's his pricing isn't too bad. He's 5,500 on DK, which is pretty nice. 6,700 on FanDuel. The connection with Marvin Harrison just hasn't been there with Kyler. So no. I think he's the most reliable aspect of their passing. They're going to have to throw. I mean, there's just I don't see any way this game doesn't absolutely shoot out. So I think that's a game you're going to have to if you're going to go heavy Dolphins, I think you're going to want to bring back, and I think McBride is my favorite of the Cardinals to bring back. All right, from the sublime to the ridiculous, we have the New York Jets traveling to New England. Thankfully, we don't have to watch the Jets this week. This is one of the few times they are not on national television. Jets are 7-point road favorites. The total is 41. So implied totals of 24 for the Jets, 17 for the New England Patriots. Some interesting things on the Jets side. Is there anything you want from New England?
Not on New England. Honestly, I don't think you could do it, but Drake May has been more than capable. I mean, if you ask for him to get, 20 points, I think he can pull it off. The main person to talk about here is Breece Hall, who, ever since they had the offensive coordinator change, he is getting like 400% of the workload. Braylon Allen hasn't been a thing. It's going to have a lot of ownership. It's a great spot. I think a lot of people have this thought in their mind that the Patriots are a good defense. And, I mean, Bill Belichick just called him soft last week, so obviously he begs to differ. And then the way to get different on this, another week of Devontae Adams in that offense. If you kind of want to get off the Breece stuff, playing Devontae Adams, say they get into the goal line, they do the stuff that they did in Green Bay. He gets the touchdowns instead of Breece. But it's just, I'd rather take a piece of this game than actually stack it. Like, I have no interest in playing Aaron Rodgers. Even if he threw 3 touchdowns, I don't think he's throwing for 300 yards. And I could totally jinx myself on that today. But I'm playing a lot of Breece Hall, even though it is going to be pretty chalky. Like I said, there is a lot of chalk plays, but at the same time, this is a 14 game slate. So your version of chalk, like a lot of stuff gets more spread out. So
Sure.
I'm fine playing Breece Hall today. I don't have much on the Patriots. Like I said, if you're playing Drake May, you don't really know who to bring him back with or play with, and outside of Hunter Henry, and it just I don't know. I'm playing Breece Hall, and that's really about it. But I do think Devontae Adams is a fun tournament play.
I think you summed that up perfectly. Yeah, it's a lot of Breece Hall and some Devontae Adams, and there's really not much else I'm interested in this game. So let's move on to another interesting game. That's the Baltimore Ravens at the Cleveland Browns. The Jameis Winston experience begins. Baltimore is an 8.5-point road favorite, 45-point total. So 26.75 implied total for Baltimore, 18.25 for Cleveland. Talked about trap games with the Packers and Jacksonville. This feels like one for Baltimore. Coming off, they got a short week, back-to-back road games. Browns, you got to think, are going to be feeling something with Jameis instead of Deshaun Watson. So I love this game. I love this game for fantasy. I love this game for DFS. What are you taking away from this one?
Yeah, you get these division rival games, and everybody
Yep.
narrates it one way, and it's totally different. I think if you're playing Jameis Winston, that is much more of a DraftKings play than FanDuel. And to be quite honest, I'm not excited if I were to be playing like that game. I'm not interested in Jameis Winston. I know he had like the 30 for 30 season and all that stuff, but it just, I mean, he's thrown to Cedric Tillman and David Njoku. It's not like Amari Cooper's there. The offensive line's been bad. I know they might be getting some reinforcements today, but and I know the Ravens defense hasn't been great, but I just I have no interest even if he's more of a volume play. The one guy I am interested in is the big dog. We've seen these scripts where they're favored by over a touchdown, and they can just rely on him to just plummet the Browns defense. And I don't think people are going to play up for him. I'd say probably under 15%. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets under 10. If you want to correlate him with Baltimore's defense, I think it's a very fun play just because I think the Browns are just down and out. If Jameis Winston was playing 3 weeks ago when there was some hope on this team, I'd probably be more interested in the play. But when he's thrown to Elijah Moore and Jerry Jeudy, that's not my cup of tea.
I guess I'm a little bit higher on the Browns' chances today than you are. I think Cedric Tillman is going to get heavy play this week. He's a punt play extraordinaire at 5,100 on FanDuel, 3,300 on DK. That is cheap as hell for a starting wide receiver who got 12 targets last week. So, yeah, I agree with you. It's hard to play Jameis, especially on sites where you get penalized for interceptions, because I mean. He's going to give the ball away. You know that. So he's a tough start. But yeah, I think Tillman's going to be in a lot of tournament lineups just because of his pricing and the targets he got. I also like on the tight end side, speaking of National Tight End Day, I like Mark Andrews a bit. He's become more and more involved in the offense. He's got like 13 targets the last 3 weeks. So he's getting more steady involvement. He's only 4K on DK. 5,600 on FanDuel. You remember the last time they played in Cleveland, he went like 5 for 80 and 2 touchdowns. So he's had success against his team in the past. So he's not someone I want to overlook. He's someone I'm sneaking into my lineups if I need a cheap tight end.
Yeah, that's a great point too. The one guy we haven't really talked about, I will be playing him in FanDuel Cash today is Lamar Jackson. He's been, past years he's been kind of up and down, but I mean he's been getting 20 points just on the regular at this point. It's kind of between him and Jalen Hurts for FanDuel Cash for me. Like I said, it's the way I play personally. I've just always paid up for quarterback. And then, like you said, for the Cedric Tillman play, I think, especially on DraftKings, it makes a lot more sense than FanDuel because FanDuel is much more touchdown dependent. And that's that's kind of my thought process there. But especially if you're playing DraftKings, I think Jameson and Tillman, David Njoku, I definitely think is going to have some ownership, especially. We'll get to Dalton Kincaid here in a minute, but I think those are the two tight ends who end up eating up the most chalk today on National Tight End Day. So I've played around with both. I think I have Njoku currently in my cash lineup over Dalton Kincaid, even though you get the savings there. But it's like I said, I worry about the touchdowns here for Cleveland.
Yeah, I think that's a fair. I think Njoku is going to see a lot of. I think he's going to see a lot of ownership this week, and that just really makes me kind of nervous. I could see playing him in cash. I don't want to. I don't want to go after that in tournaments just because, like I say, we'll talk about Kincaid in a minute and how he's just an auto include on FanDuel, and yeah, I think Njoku's ownership is going to be just higher than it probably should be. So I'm staying away from him a little bit. All right, moving on to our next game. We've got the Indianapolis Colts traveling to Houston. Houston coming off that kind of offensive debacle last week against Green Bay. Just couldn't do anything through the air. So you got to think they bounce back a little bit. Total in this one is 45.5. Indy's a 5-point road dog. So their implied total is 20.25. Houston's implied total is 25.25. Kind of feel like the Houston passing game bounces back a little bit in this one, don't you?
Yeah. I mean, I come on here every week and dog Gus Bradley, and even though they get DeForest Buckner back, I'm ready to do it again. This is a great get-right spot for Houston, even though they don't have Nico Collins. I feel like even when he was playing, something just missing from the Texans offense compared to what it was last year. Maybe it's the explosiveness or whatnot. I think it's a great Tank Dell game. I think he's going to have some ownership, but I think it ends up, a great spot for him. Stephon Diggs is going to go under-owned. Like I said, I don't believe in this Colts. Colts secondary is one of the worst in the league. Another guy who I was really excited to play until I saw some ownership is Joe Mixon. I think people are going to pay up for him. I think he gets close to 20%, which I think that's fine. I mean, he's getting 25-point games on the regular. He's probably my favorite play on this Texans offense. And then the Colts side, ugh, very tough.
Meh.
Anthony Richardson has looked terrible. If you're going to play him, you're going to play him alone. I don't think his pass catchers are viable. And then if you want to play Jonathan Taylor coming back, I think that's fine. I don't think he'll get 2% owned. I don't think anybody's going to play him, but we've seen his workload in the past. You hope that this game kind of goes back and forth. I messed around with some Anthony Richardson and then Houston pass catchers and kind of simulated some of that. Doesn't work out really well. And it's hard to see Anthony Richardson bringing any of these wide receivers with him. Josh Downs has not been fantasy viable when Anthony Richardson's been in the lineup. Michael Pittman's kind of goofy. You don't know which tight end is going to be there each week. So it's like I said, it's an awesome spot for the Texans. I'm leaning Joe Mixon, but I'm definitely playing the pass catchers and CJ Stroud in the lineup as well in tournaments today.
Yeah, my problem with Stroud is I don't like any of. I agree with you on Mixon. I don't really like the Texans passing game in this one. I like Steph Diggs, but I don't want to pay for him. Yep. I mean, salary is just at 8,500 on FanDuel, 7,500 on DK. It's too much. I don't want to pay for that. Especially when we talked about Tyreek Hill being cheaper, considerably cheaper than that, and a better play. So I don't know how you get to Steph Diggs. So I don't really want to play him. I don't like Tank Dell just in general until he gets things going. I mean, he had a brutal touchdown drop in the game against Green Bay last week, and then he put up a stone zero. So I think I need to see it from him before I start him. I agree with you on everything on Mixon. I like him a lot this week, but he is pricey, and I think he's going to have high ownership. When you could rather, I'd rather start Breece Hall, who's cheaper. I'd rather say, we go down the list when you get to J.K. Dobbins, Javonte Williams. Those guys are in smash spots this week. So, yeah, he's a tough start this week as well. And I have zero interest in starting Jonathan Taylor, just zero. I mean, I want to see him do something before I pay for him. So, yeah, this is a game that I think is probably going to put up some points, but I don't know how you attack it from a DFS. I don't know how you go heavy on this from a DFS standpoint.
Yeah, and the thing with Joe Mixon is if you pay up $100 more for Saquon and then $200 more for the big dog over on FanDuel.
Right.
That's kind of the problem. And like I said, I loved Joe Mixon as a play until I saw his ownership. I'm fine with it, but when you're paying $9K for a running back and he's got close to 20% projected ownership, it's a little dicey, especially on a 14 game slate where you would think ownership would be a little more spread out. But if you feel like people are leaning one way, I'm trying to get away from that. So I'm just going to stick to my gut with Joe Mixon. This Colts defense is an embarrassment to society, and eventually people are going to get tired of me saying that every week. And just real quick before we move off, if there was a spot for CJ Stroud to have his moment this year, to kind of go back to what he looked like last year, even without Nico Collins, this is it against the Colts at home.
Yeah, I think this game. Yeah, I think maybe if you want to play this game, maybe you just play CJ Stroud naked and see what happens. But that's tough to do when there's other guys like Jordan Love and Caleb Williams that I would also like to play naked. So, I think this game is just a casualty of the 13/14 game slate, in that I just don't see how you get to this game. So then we'll
Just
probably be
it's
proven wrong and Steph Diggs will go off. But
right. It's tough, but like I said, this is the one time of the year we have all these games on the same, no bye weeks, no London, no nothing.
right.
Everybody's just playing, so it's tough. But like I said, Joe Mixon, he was going to be in my flag plant portion of the program, but I've leaned elsewhere just because of ownership.
Alrighty, let us move on to the Titans at the Lions. One of the kind of slaughter games of the week. 44.5 point total in this one. Tennessee is an 11.5 point underdog, so 16.5 point implied total for them. 28 point implied total for Detroit. That is the highest implied total of the week. So there should be some goodness on the Detroit side, but this is a little worried this game gets out of hand and things get ugly. So what do you want to do here?
I love this game for the Lions, and I'm going to play it every which way. So Jameson Williams is out. He's on PED suspension. Seems like he's one of us. Got a little bit of a gambling problem, a little bit of cheating scandal. So
A
congrats
little
to
bit of a
him.
loser.
Yeah. So it's I think it's really fun. I think talk about National Tight End Day. Sam Laporta obviously opens a lot of stuff up with Jameson Williams not being there. I like the Jared Goff stuff, to be quite honest with you. It makes the target share condensed, so you play Amon Ra. Jared Goff ends up being cheap. You play Sam Laporta as kind of like the mid-range tight end, and they kind of beat up on the Titans and get up pretty quick, and then you play Lions defense at 4K over on FanDuel. The one way I don't think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have any ownership. I see that Titans are first against the rush, but this Lions rushing attack is a totally different breed. I thought last week or whenever it was, I thought we lost David Montgomery for the year, and then he's gone for
Yeah,
like
he came back to the game.
2 series. So I don't know if they lean on Jahmyr Gibbs this week if things get out of hand, or if David Montgomery, blasted in for 2 touchdowns again. But I'm going to play a lot of this game. I think it's going to go under owned. I don't have any interest in Calvin Ridley as a bring back. I'm just not going to play anybody
No,
on the Titan side with it.
no. Yeah, I agree. And Nick brings up a good point. Titans are good first against the rush, and I wrote this up in the article this week. Yeah, it's a nominally tough spot for the Detroit run game, but the Detroit run game is really good. They've got probably the best offensive line in the league right now. And I like David Montgomery just because I think this game is going to get completely out of hand. So I think they end up using him as the closer. So yeah, I do like Montgomery, especially in cash. I don't love him in tournaments just because he really doesn't get a whole lot of passing game involvement. Makes it really tough for him to kind of completely go off the way you need him to. But I like his price. I think he's a very solid cash game play. So 8,000 on FanDuel, 6,400 on DK. Around 13% of your salary. I think that's a nice play. I do like, yeah, I agree with you. I like Amon-Ra St. Brown. I like Jahmyr Gibbs. I like Jared Goff as, if you want to pair him with Amon-Ra or you want to pair him with Gibbs, because I do think Gibbs' ownership is going to be very low this week. So I like that option to get kind of contrarian in tournaments. And, if they get off to a big lead, they have to get to that big lead somehow. So yeah, maybe Montgomery in the second half, but closing things out, but they got to get there somehow. Zero interest in any of the Titans. Sounds like Will Levis might be back this week. I tend to doubt it, but we've heard he's upgraded to questionable. So I still don't care if it's Mason Rudolph. I don't care if it's Will Levis. I mean, this offense couldn't do anything last week with Levis or with Rudolph, against Buffalo. So yeah, no interest in Pollard, no interest in Calvin Ridley. This team's just given up on the season, right? They traded DeAndre Hopkins. They traded Ernest Jones after they just acquired him right before the season started. So hi, bye. Nice to see you. Have a good time in Seattle. So this team is just bailing on the season. So yeah, no interest right now in any of them. Tony Pollard's way too expensive to be kind of if you wanted to be contrarian with him, he's just way too expensive. And the Lions run defense is excellent. So yeah, just zero interest there. I will have 0 shares of Tony Pollard. So so all Detroit all day in that one. All right, last game of the early window is the Atlanta Falcons traveling to Tampa Bay to take on the eviscerated Buccaneers and their passing game, losing Chris Godwin and Mike Evans last week on Monday night. Atlanta is a 2-point road favorite because of those injuries. 45.5 point total. You can see how this game has kind of really changed because of those injuries. You look at the opening line on that was 46 and 2.5. So the betting line has really moved towards Atlanta and the under. So 23.75 implied total for Atlanta, 21.75 for Tampa Bay. Some interesting punt plays on the Tampa side and some juicy plays on the Atlanta side. So how you want to attack this one?
It's a little goofy, I think. I'm curious to see how much Atlanta's defense will be owned. Atlanta's 32nd in the league at sack rate. Like, they don't get pressure, even though they brought in Matthew Judon. It's not like, the offensive line for the Bucks is bad. Just all the receivers are gone. We know Baker Mayfield can be, a little turnover happy at times. The one thing I do want to point out, just a couple weeks ago, Kirk Cousins threw for 509 yards against his defense. I feel like a lot of people have forgotten about that already. So it's Drake London. I don't think he's going to have a ton of ownership, but he's been awesome all year long. And I think he ends up being that mid-price wide receiver that I'd lean into. I originally had him in my cash lineup this week. Probably a decent play for tournaments as well. And then, like I said, I know a lot of people are punting these wide receivers this week. If I had to pick one for the Buccaneers, I'd pick McMillan, but I don't feel very confident in it. And I'm just not. If you want to play Kate Otten, that's fine. He's gotten 100% of the. He's on the field basically 100% of the time, and he doesn't really get there, but he does get some targets, and you just hope that the Bucks can keep up a little bit. But as far as the rest of it goes, I'm not playing too much of this game unless I'd need a punt and play Atlanta's defense. But even then, I'd rather pay up play like Lions at 4K over on FanDuel, or get up to 5K range and play some of those, uh, higher price ones. But do you have a insight on which Buccaneers wide receiver you'd play this week?
I guess I would play Shepard because I think McMillan is going to be extremely highly owned. So if you want to go, I think if you want to go contrarian, it's Shepard. McMillan at 4,937 on DK. I think he's gonna be right there with Cedric Tillman as the kind of punt play that people try to sneak into the back end of their lineup. So yeah, I would kind of lean towards Shepard just to be different if I was trying to get into this game. I also, speaking of National Tight End Day, I think this is as good a spot as you'll ever see to start Cade Otton. I mean, I generally think Cade Otton's a terrible player, but 3,500 on DK is really cheap. And he's gonna be involved. He's gonna get targets. He's gonna have to get targets. So, yeah, I think there's some. I can't get to Baker Mayfield. I just can't. I do kind of like Rashad White with Bucky Irving being dinged up. It sounds like he's going to play. But Rashad White at 6,400, 5,700 on DK. I think he's going to have to be a big part of the game plan. Not necessarily running, but just his involvement in the passing game with. I think Sean Tucker will be kind of the running play running back, and Rashad White will be the passing down running back. So I do like Rashad White a bit in this spot. He's fairly cheap, and I think he'll be contrarian because nobody likes him, nobody wants to play him. And the Atlanta side, yeah, I agree with you on kind of everything. I love Drake London. I think Kirk Cousins is a great start. 7,100 on FanDuel, 6,200 on DK. He's pretty cheap. He's in that tier of quarterbacks that I really like this week. If you don't want to pay up. And then Bijan is interesting in that I think you're right. I think he will have pretty low ownership just because Tampa's a pass funnel defense. They are pretty tough to run against with Vita Vea and company. But like he's kind of put Tyler Algier in the dustbin the last couple of weeks. They've really committed to him. So 8,600 on FanDuel, 72 on DK. He's not cheap by any means, but I think he will be contrarian. So I think he's a nice tournament option.
Yeah, I don't hate that call, and I was kind of working through the process there, just trying to figure out the Bijan stuff. I do want to bring up, like you said, Rashad White is a guy I was excited about as well. I think these injuries kind of saved his ass as far as this running back room goes. I don't think anybody else was going to totally take it over, but Rashad White looked really good. and I think he's going to get a lot of dump offs, and I think he's a great play, especially over on DK if he gets receptions. So if the Buccaneers are down and third down, they just need the dump off to Rashad White. If that's the only thing that's open this week because the rest of the wide receivers can't get open, I I think he's a great play at his price. It's a little expensive, and you kind of worry about the rest of the workload. I think Bucky Irving's going to play. He was kind of iffy earlier, but I think he's a great play, and I don't think it's going to have a lot of ownership either. So I'm glad you brought that up because I think we're both on the same page there. I think sub 5% ownership. I don't think anybody's playing Rashad White this week.
Yeah, I think he's a nice tournament play. Nick brings up a question. Do we like the over? If we're talking about the Atlanta Tampa game, yeah, I do like the over a lot. I mean, Tampa's defense is just terrible. Jamel Dean's on IR. Their pass defense is just brutal. They had to play Monday night, so they're coming off a short week. Atlanta was really disappointing last week against Seattle. I thought they were going to put up a lot of points. Only scored 14, so that was disappointing. So, yeah, I think both teams. I think Atlanta's going to get out to a big lead, and I think that's going to lead to a lot of garbage time. So, yeah, I do like the over in this one. 45 and a half. It came down a little bit. So, yeah, I like the over in the Atlanta Tampa game.
Yeah, I like the over as well, just because I think Bucks offensive coordinator Liam Cohen does a lot of good stuff, and I know he's going to be missing both Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. That hurts, obviously, but I still think they'll be able to get it done. I have no respect for Atlanta's defense. I know that's sad to say, but I just I feel like they've been like the same defense for a decade. No pass
Yep.
rushers. Might have somebody in the secondary. They got like
Ever
some great
since Dan
players.
Quinn left.
Yeah, it's just been the same exact defense. They plug and play different guys, but it's just been the same thing. So I'll take the over as well. I'm not as scared of the Bucks' offensive collapse as other people. I think they'll still be respectable.
Yeah, and you brought up the point that Atlanta just doesn't get pass pressure, so that sets up well for Baker Mayfield if he's not pressured. So, yeah, I definitely like the over in that game. All right, so that is the end of the early window games. Let's move to the late window where we've got 5 games. So, not a pretty good spot for Scott Hansen to not have to talk a lot instead of like 3 games last week that he only had to play or work with. Let's start with Bills Seahawks. Buffalo travels cross country to go play Seattle. This is a 45-point total. Bills 3-point road favorites. So implied total of 21 and 20 or 24 for Buffalo, 21 for Seattle. Seahawks have to play without DK Metcalf, and we've referred to it earlier. National Tight End Day, and Dalton Kincaid is only 4K on DK. What is going on? Let's talk about it. Lot to dig into in this game.
Yeah, I'd love to know whatever drugs the FanDuel people were on this week. I don't know if they just missed a button or what, but Dalton Kincaid at 4K, he's going to have a lot of ownership, and I don't necessarily think you have to play it. I mean, it makes sense if you want to smash some guys in. I totally get that. Dalton Kincaid overall has not been that great this year. And I mean, David Njoku, like we talked about earlier, is only 1,500 more at 5,500. That's what you would be normally playing most of these guys at, anyways. So I I'll play Dalton Kincaid if I'm playing stars and scrubs. But as far as I still would rather play some other stuff. Seahawks last week. I want to talk about their defense real quick. Both of us thought that Atlanta was going to crush them, and I don't know if the Seahawks are just getting better on defense, but at McDonald Seahawks defense and the way that they play, it seemed like it really got to Kirk Cousins, and I'm a little curious if it gets to Josh Allen this week, but it's no DK Metcalf really hurts. JSN hasn't been the wide receiver that I think a lot of people expected him to be so far. Hopefully, this is the week. Even though DK Metcalf's out, I don't think a lot of people are playing JSN. Bills' defense has been susceptible to the run, so that makes Kenneth Walker a really good play as well. And then on the Bills side, I mean, Josh Allen's like the number one quarterback in fantasy outside of Lamar Jackson, and nobody's going to play him. I think he's an awesome tournament play, especially with Amari Cooper there. Going up against the Seahawks, it's a little dicey, but no, we've seen Josh Allen just get in the box 3 times. He's running on the goal line. I mean, he does that every week now. So he ends up taking like that Jalen Hurts tush push kind of stuff, but he just ends up running quarterback power or draw or whatever it is. So I think Josh Allen's a really fun tournament play that he will not have any ownership. If he goes for 30 points, you are stuffing a lot of the field. And then Dalton Kincaid will be the other guy owned. And it just, I'm interested in this game. Jake Bobo, I don't have much. One guy I do like as far as tight ends is Noah Fant. I think he's kind of come on the last couple of weeks, and without DK Metcalf, kind of sets up nice for him too.
Yeah, so shout out to Nick. Appreciate the subscription. Thank you for checking in. Um, yeah, I want to get in on the ground floor of the Josh Allen Amari Cooper pairing, just because I think that's going to go really well. They put up big numbers last week on a very small snap count. I didn't want to play Cooper last week because he just got in there, didn't think he could produce, but he did, and he didn't play very many snaps. So I think with a full week of practice, I think that pairing is going to do really good things. So I want to get in on the ground floor. Tariq Woolen is back for Seattle this week, so that makes me a little bit nervous. He's a very good cornerback, but I still think I want to get some of that. I still like James Cook this week. I don't think he's going to have a ton of ownership just because there's so many other good options that I think he's going to get left in the dustbin. So I want to have some exposure, 77 on FanDuel, 77,000 on DK. So I want to get some exposure there. Yeah, here's the interesting thing about Dalton Kincaid and his pricing in that, yeah, the price is wrong, obviously, for what he can do for his role in the offense. I think it's kind of over factoring in the injury. He had a season high in receiving, it was 1 yard higher than his previous high, but so he's part of the offense. So, but I agree with you. I think you can go other directions and still be okay because I don't think Dalton Kincaid's a guy who's going to kill you. So, yeah, I think his ownership is going to be very high. So, yeah, in cash games, yeah, I think I want to start him. But in tournaments, I'm totally okay going a different direction because I just don't think he's a guy who's going to is he going to score 2 touchdowns and just absolutely kill you if you don't start him? I don't think so.
No, and I mean the most yards he's had this year is 52, and the highest he has scored is 11.6. At least
Right.
over on FanDuel. I mean, he's not. He gets probably 6 targets a game. He gets about 40 yards. He's had 1 touchdown on the year so far, and it kind of saved him for one of the fantasy weeks. I don't think you have to do it. And I know it's National Tight End Day, and we don't want to discriminate here. So Dalton Kincaid can totally get a touchdown here to celebrate. But I just think there's some guys in some better spots, and I was in on Dalton Kincaid this offseason. I feel like he's burned me for his price point, and there's other guys I'd rather play. So, like I said earlier, if you're playing cash and you want to jam in like Tyreek and Jamar Chase, if you find out T. Higgins is out, Dalton Kincaid makes a lot of sense. You hope he gets his 5 points and hopefully a touchdown. But
Yep.
feel more comfortable with Njoku. I would honestly, it sounds kind of goofy. I'd rather take a shot on Noah Fant at this point with no DK Metcalf than play Dalton Kincaid. I don't know if that's hot takey or not, but just I'd rather get away from the ownership portion of this and just play something else.
Yeah, I say the one thing I like on the Seattle side is Tyler Lockett. I think
Yeah.
people are going to flock to JSN just because they want to, and he's a sexier pick. Lockett at 6,100 on FanDuel, 5,600 on DK. I just like he's the guy when DK's out. So I think I want to have some exposure there, and I would much rather play Lockett than JSN.
I think that's fair. He's looked better on the field too, as far as the stats go. Gino's kind of looked his way a little bit more. He's been better than a lot of people think. So I think that's a great point. And I don't think like I said, this game has some shootout potential, and I don't think anybody's going to play it. I think it's an awesome tournament play today.
Yeah, absolutely. Question from our buddy Bob Dole. Good morning. Thanks for checking out the show. Do I start a running back or wide receiver flex? I have Barkley and Henry starting running back and Devonta Smith and London starting wide receiver. That leaves Mason, Moss, Bigsby, Pickens, and Olave for potential flex. I think you got to start Jordan Mason. I think he's a must start this week.
Yeah, he is going to smash the Cowboys defense. I've waited for the Jordan Mason blow-up game for like the last month, and now that everybody's hurt, no Micah Parsons. I believe he is out. I think they confirmed that. It's Mike Zimmer's run defense been getting gashed, so Jordan Mason's play here. I don't think there's any fight in that one.
Yeah, no question on that one. Mason is clearly above the rest. I do like Bigsby, like you said. I like Bigsby in that spot against Green Bay. Their rush defense just isn't that great. He would be my second call here, but Mason is head and shoulders above the rest of the field of those options. And then one more question: Kincaid or Likely? What do you think? This time depends on if it's best ball or DFS or if it's just a regular lineup question.
I'm gonna lead Kincaid just because the Mark Andrews has been getting there, and I worry. This kind of sounds goofy. I worry if Baltimore gets out to like a big lead and just don't have to chuck it, kind of kills the likely stuff. I know he's been on the field, and outside of his week one, he hasn't had really any more monster games. But Mark Andrews is kind of leaning in. He's not fully there. Like I know we've seen the 2 touchdown games, and people think that Mark Andrews is totally back. The snap share is still taking some time off the field, but I'd still play Kincaid, I think.
Yeah, I think I would lean that way just because he's safer. Likely has really become a touchdown or bust option at this point. He did have the 2 touchdown game against Cincinnati, but he only had like 3 catches in that game. So, yeah, I just think Kincaid's a more steady part of the offense than Likely is. And like I said, I do like Andrews quite a bit in that game today against Cleveland. So I would lean Kincaid here.
Yeah,
And
likely's Likely's last couple games, 4 for 17, or 2 for 17, 2 for 27. The 2 touchdown game, he had 3 for 13 yards. So I mean,
yeah, yeah,
Kincaid's just a better floor play there.
yeah. And appreciate you, Bob Dole. Appreciate all you guys for checking out the show. And our buddy Gary Van Dyke, the IDP tipster, back from the Ohio State game. Hope you had fun yesterday watching them barely beat Nebraska, getting his DFS groove on. So appreciate you checking out the show. All right, let's move on to our next game. The Saints and the Chargers. Saints got to go across all the way out to LA for a West Coast trip after their Thursday night game. 41-point total on this one. So one of 4 41-point totals on the week. That is the lowest total available on the slate. New Orleans, a 7-point road dog, so implied total of 17 for Spencer Rattler and the Saints, 24 for the Chargers. There's some interesting things in this game for such a low total. What are you thinking?
J.K. Dobbins is going to get a lot of ownership. It's a great. I should. His workload's been great. I don't know if this is like the spot of a lifetime. I think if you were playing cash, he ends up being in the pool with Javonte Williams, Devon Achan. I know the price points are a little bit different, but he ends up being in consideration there if you're paying up to play like Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, that sort of thing. So I like J.K. Dobbins today. Workload has been great. I mean, Jim Harbaugh has not been afraid to establish it, and Kamani Vidal has not really eaten into too much of the workload either after his, 1 touchdown game that he had a couple weeks ago. So outside of that, Saints side, Olave might be interesting. I know that he hasn't really played much with Rattler, but they talked about it. They were going to lock on, and then he got hurt and haven't really played together since. But outside of that, Chargers defense, I think, is fine. Joey Bosa seems like he is iffy, like always. I mean, it seems like every week he's got something new hurt, but it's I'm gonna mix. I think I'll have Dobbins in my cash game lineup. I'm probably gonna fade him in tournaments because of his ownership.
Yeah, I think that's perfect analysis in that I think Dobbins is a great cash game play. 7,300, 6,900. I mean, you saw this Saints defense just get gashed by Javonte Williams last week. So yeah, I think he should be productive, but yeah, just not much pass game involvement, and the ownership is going to kind of push me off of him in tournaments. So yeah, I love him in cash, not so much in tournaments. I do like Olave a little bit. He's kind of pricey, but I think he's just going to get so many targets this week with obviously Rashid Shaheed on IR. And Spencer Rattler's just terrible. So I think he's just going to get peppered with targets this week. So I like the volume play there. The one thing I really wanted to play Lad McConkey this week. Saints lost Paulson to Debo for the season on last Thursday. So I think he's in a really good matchup, but he's got that hip injury. So I'm really concerned about if he was healthy, I think he would be an absolute smash play. But I'm just really concerned about that, about the injury. So I kind of like him as maybe a tournament play if you want to get different, just be contrarian, because I don't think a lot of people are going to be playing, missed a lot of practice this week. So I think a lot of people will just be off of him. So I think he's a nice contrarian play for tournaments, if assuming he's healthy. And that's someone you're going to have to check the active list, the active inactive report for during the early window.
Yeah, Vlad McConkey, the player, has been awesome, and I think he's been a really underrated portion of the rookies this season. The thing with me is just always going to be the Chargers passing. I know Herbert just threw for 300 yards last week and lost, did his best Philip Rivers impersonation as far as the Chargers go. I just I worry about Lad McConkey's ceiling, and it has nothing to do with him. It just ends up being, kind of the Chargers' offense overall. And with the hip injury, but like I said, he's been a really fun rookie to watch, and he's been really good there. Even if the stats don't show that he's like a total alpha, I think he's interesting in tournaments. I worry about his ceiling, but like I said, I'd be more open to him if he hadn't had the injury bug all week.
Yeah, exactly. That's my concern as well. Question from Jerry. Thanks for checking out the show. Chuba Hubbard or Tank Bigsby? I mean, for me, this is easy. Tank Bigsby. I don't want any. We'll get to the Denver game in a minute, but I don't want anything to do with the Carolina offense with Bryce Young starting.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Chuba's been great this year. Bryce Young, you just see the train derailment going off the bridge. I mean, it's going to be very bad. If Andy Dalton was playing and whoever decided to hit his car and hurt his thumb, I want to have a talk with them because they have destroyed some of my hopes and dreams as far as fantasy goes. Deontay Johnson, probably like, I'm not doing the Bryce Young thing. I'm just going to take the week off. Chuba, I have a decent amount of him. But yeah, it's got to be Tank Bigsby, even if he is more of a runner than a pass catcher. Just better game environment. Bryce Young's playing.
Yep.
Just can't do it.
Yep. 100%. All right. So let's get to the Kermit the Frog revenge game. The Chiefs and the Raiders. Kansas City is a 9.5-point road favorite with a 41-point total. So this is one of those weird games with a huge favorite and a low total. Kansas City won the 25.25 implied point total. Vegas 15.75. Second lowest to the Carolina Panthers implied total this week. You buying the Kermit the Frog revenge game? What are you thinking?
I am. It's
Okay.
great. It's a great day to buy on Patrick Mahomes. Nobody's gonna play him. Just lost Juju Smith-Schuster, so you get Travis Kelce and you get Xavier Worthy. It's very easy. The Raiders got rid of Devontae Adams. They don't really have anybody else except for Brock Bowers. Uh, I think Patrick Mahomes is going to stick it to him, and I think Travis Kelce, even before the narrative, was an awesome play. Even though I don't think, think people are tired of hoping just seeing the lack of volume, but I'm in. The Raiders' defense has been terrible. Chiefs' defense has been awesome. I think it's going to set them up a lot of like short yardage stuff, just because Gardner Minshew is going to be in there and not be able to do anything. I'm in. As far as tournaments, I think it's an awesome tournament play. I think they're going to try their best to get some more stuff to Xavier Worthy. They missed a bomb last week. I think Patrick Mahomes didn't think he could overthrow him and somehow pulled it off. But I'm in. I don't know how you feel, but I'm definitely in on Kermit the Frog narrative.
I tend to agree with you. This is also a revenge game from the Christmas game last year where the Chiefs couldn't do anything against that Raiders defense. So I think they want to get some payback there. I think what's interesting is DeAndre Hopkins, who I think is in the same spot as Amari Cooper was last week, in that I'm really nervous to start him on a short week of practice. But man, he's still priced as when he was on the Titans. So he's 5,400 on FanDuel, 4,900 on DK. He's incredibly cheap. I think his ownership's going to be. I think he's going to have some ownership. So I don't think you can fade him entirely.
Yeah. The one thing that I was a little confused about, he's obviously had the MCL injury where he's been a little goofy. He's also been playing on the Titans, so you can't really analyze that with a full, you know, you know, full view. But the thing about him is he's like a big body receiver at this point and doesn't do much after the catch. And it seems like the entire Chiefs offense is getting people in space and getting them to do, stuff after the catch. That's why they had Worthy. Rashee Rice was really good at it. Get Kelce in space, he catches it and kind of does his thing. It makes sense just because they need a body. I thought that the Chiefs needed a guy like this before the season. That's why I kind of thought Mike Williams would have been fun this offseason. DeAndre Hopkins makes a lot of sense even before then, but now I'm a little worried, but it would make a lot of sense to play him. Like I said, I don't think anybody's going to play him, and he's not going to have any ownership. I just worry about his ceiling. I'm going to lean into Travis Kelce today.
Yeah, I did tweet out when the Hopkins trade happened that he's a low A dot,
Yeah.
middle of the field kind of guy at this point in his career. He can't be the boundary. I think what the Chiefs really need is a boundary stretcher, and he's not that guy. But man, at 4,900 on DK on a full PPR site, I mean, he gets a touchdown and 5 catches. He's easily paying off that number. So I think you got to give him some. I think you got to give him some respect. I think he needs some exposure there. But I agree. I think this is probably, if there ever was a Kelsey week, if Kelsey doesn't go off this week, then I'm going to be really worried about him going forward.
Yeah. I think this is the one week of the year that I would be actually interested in playing him. So
Yeah,
we'll see. If he
even
doesn't
at
do
his
it this
price,
week, yeah.
he's not cheap. But yeah, if he doesn't do it this week, I'm going to be really concerned that it ever happens. All right, so moving on to the kind of ugly game, the other 41-point total. Carolina going to Denver. So 41-point total. Carolina's an 11-point underdog. 15-point implied total, the lowest of the week. Denver at 26. Is there anything you care about in this game besides Javonte Williams?
Broncos defense. I've
Yeah,
mixed and
good
matched
point.
those.
Good point.
It's ends up being really pricey, but other than that, I've seen people talk about Bo Nix, and I God, I get it, I guess, but I just I don't have any interest, and I know that they're in a great spot against the Panthers, but I still don't trust this Broncos offense to be like I think they're a 25-point team total or whatever it was earlier. I mean, really, the Denver Broncos? Like, I know the Panthers suck. I get that analysis, but like, really, Bo Nix is gonna openly just put 25 points on any NFL defense? It's I think Bo Nix will have some ownership, like I said, to play some other guys. I'm gonna play a little bit of Javante, especially after his big week last week, and then pair him with Broncos defense that could end up, as far as defenses go, break the slate. I mean, Bryce Young is due for about 2 pick-sixes, some fumbles. Deontay Johnson's out, so you get Xavier Leggett, who I think's the man. But uh, Broncos secondary's been awesome this year. Outside of just Patrick Surtain, the rest of the crew's been getting it done too. So I just it's Javante in the defense, and that's it for me.
Yeah, I agree. No Deontay Johnson, so you cannot. I wouldn't be surprised if Carolina scores like 3 points in this game against that Denver defense. Wouldn't shock me at all. So yeah, Denver defense is definitely in play. I do like Javante quite a bit. I mean, he's priced pretty nice price, 6K on both sites. So yeah, I like that quite a bit. He's going to be in a lot of my lineups this week. I cannot start Bo Nix with this many. Like, he's the only way to start Bo Nix is in a really short slate. Like last week when he had 10 games on the slate or something like that. On a 13, 14 game slate on FanDuel, you cannot start Bo Nix with all these other quarterback options. There's just no way. And this, especially in this game environment where they could legitimately be sitting on the ball for 3 quarters. So yeah, I'm not even at his price. I'm not even considering Bo Nix.
Yeah, the thing about Bo Nix is, I'll check DraftKings in a second. So Bo Nix is 6,900 on FanDuel. If you pay up $100 more, you get Tua. It's like,
Right. Exactly.
why? I trust me, I get the rushing floor, but I just I'm not doing it. So
Yeah, we get a couple questions here. So appreciate you guys checking out the show. NBA Live 2K9, Jacobs or Connor? For me, this is pretty easily Jacobs, but I know you mentioned Connor earlier. What do you think?
I'm leaning James Conner here.
Okay.
It's kind of tough. I think if the Cardinals offense gets going, it's going to have to be around James Conner, who they've tried to make a staple in the games that they have been competitive in. And Josh Jacobs has been good this year. We've still not seen like the great, like awesome ceiling game. Maybe it's here. I mean, Jaguars defense has been terrible, but like you said earlier, they're getting some guys back. It I'm going to lean James Conner, and I know you said Josh Jacobs. I'm leaning into the Jordan Love stuff today. That's why I say James Conner.
That's fair. That's fair.
So
And I do, like I said, I am concerned about this game script getting kind of, I'm concerned about this being a trap game for the Packers. But if you go by the line, if you go by the output, I think Jacobs it's a better game environment for Jacobs. Like, I think my concern for Connor is that the Cardinals just get behind super early and just have to play from behind the entire game. And Connor's got no pass game involvement. We talked about Bigsby before. Like Connor's getting no pass game involvement either. So I can see this just being a game where he just doesn't see the field very much. That would be my concern.
Yeah, I'm going to put it this way. If you want to shoot for a little bit of ceiling, I would say James Conner because he's had some 20-point games under his
Sure.
belt.
Yep.
But if you just want like a nice floor, Josh Jacobs, 17 points, 10 points, 15. Like James Conner fluctuates. He's had some 3 and 4 point games. So if you want some floor, Josh Jacobs, who's got, like I said, a pretty good ceiling on him too. So that's just, I'm going to lean James Conner still, but I'm a I'm not trying to capitulate here. Josh Jacobs is probably the better play. I would pick James Conner personally, but if I'm giving advice, probably Josh Jacobs.
I agree with that analysis completely, and that Connor's the better ceiling play. Jacobs is the better floor play. I think that makes some sense. So it depends on your lineup.
Hope we could help you.
Question. Yeah, some dude. Appreciate you checking out the show. How do you feel about Khalifa Raymond with Jameson Williams out?
I just rather not, personally. I like Khalif Raymond. I think he's actually a pretty fun player. A couple things here. Detroit Lions are just going to beat the holy hell out of the Titans today and probably don't need Khalif Raymond. Number 2, it's National Tight End Day. I think Sam Laporta.
Ooh,
Not don't want to
that's
say
some
he's due,
analysis.
but I like Sam Laporta a lot today. It's the games last year where they kind of waited on Jameson Williams and he never got there, so Laporta had his big year, basically because Jameson Williams wasn't around or wasn't totally in. Now that he's gone. And then number 3, we talked about the Buccaneers pass catchers. I think there's some cheaper guys that you can go off of today that probably will be in better game environments, better game scripts than Khalif Raymond. I don't think you have to do it, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I just you're so hoping for a touchdown with Khalif Raymond because there's just no volume there. So yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I don't think he slots into that Jameson Williams role, and I think you're right. I don't think they're going to need him today at all.
They also talked about Allen Robinson this week.
What is that?
I know Dan Campbell is, a hell of a guy and stuff. I'd love to have a chat with him. Why, out of all the reasons, he would need to get Allen Robinson involved. But above my pay grade, he gets paid the big bucks. I'm here right now, which I love it here. I'm not discriminating, but just I just think you can go different than Khalif Raymond. I just don't think you have to do it.
Absolutely. Appreciate you checking out the show. And a question from our buddy JJ Wenner. Thank you for checking out the show. Is D Hop playing? Obviously, no inactive report yet, but Andy Reid this week said, "Why not put him out there?" So I don't think he's going to get a full complement of snaps, but I think they'll have some plays lined up for him.
Yeah, he got a full workload in Thursday or Friday, so he's playing. I don't know, obviously snap share and stuff, but if anybody needs him, it's Chiefs. He can go out there and run sprints for 4 quarters.
Exactly.
And it's not just he
could be a decoy if you wanted to. Patrick Mahomes will find you at some point. All right, so the 425 game today. We'll see. This game's just been kind of overshadowed by the Jaden Daniels injury. Bears at Commanders. Chicago is this will show you the value of Jaden Daniels according to Vegas right now. This game opened at Bears 2.5 and a 43-point total. It's now a pick'em, and the total is 46 now that Jaden Daniels is expected to play. So just crazy line change with the Daniels injury information. So right now it's Chicago pick'em, total's 46, implied total of 23 for both sides. This game is all about if Jaden Daniels plays, right?
It is, and maybe the uncertainty is what I'm going to buy into. I was excited for this game before. Honestly, really good spot for Caleb Williams. I think he's going to go under-owned today. I know the last 2 games he played was against Jacksonville and Carolina. Washington's pass defense has not been great. The unit overall has been better than what I expect, but he's put up over 25 points the last 2 weeks, so his ceiling is there. Coming off the bye week, I hope to see a little bit more Rome Odunze. Keenan Allen ended up catching a touchdown pass on his return. DJ Moore has been kind of all over the place. Hasn't been totally awesome, but he's not been bad. It's just and then Cole Kmet has kind of had some run too. So I'm going to play some Caleb Williams today, and I think I'm going to pair him with Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze and just hope that, bye week kind of gets him more incorporated. if I'm playing Commander stuff, it'd just be Jaden Daniels by himself. Bears defense has been really good this year, and I just kind of worry that I'm not a Terry McLaurin hater, but I just feel like I've not played him at all for like the last 5 years, and now that he gets a quarterback, I'm still pretty skittish to play him. But this game could go back and forth, and I like the game environment. I don't think it's going to have any ownership because we've played the Q tag all week with Jaden Daniels, but it's an awesome spot for him. Um, really kind of leaning into Caleb Williams today. I think that stack ends up being cheap, and it gets you to buy into some of the other stuff. And I think this game's got shootout potential.
I agree with you 100%. Pretty much everything you said. I love Caleb Williams this week. He is my QB start of the week. I wrote him up in the article as like in a vacuum. He's my favorite start. I'm playing him with, like you said, I'm playing him with Keenan Allen. I'm playing him with Roma Dunze because those guys are cheap. I could see you playing him naked just because they've got so many options. I mean, he could get there and just, one touchdown to DJ Moore, one touchdown to Keenan Allen, one touchdown to Roma Dunze, one to, DeAndre Swift, whatever. There's a lot of paths for him to be successful, and you don't necessarily have to bring someone with you. But I mean, Keenan Allen and Odunze are so cheap that you almost you want to get some involvement. Odunze 5,500 on FanDuel, 51 on DK. Love that. Keenan Allen is cheap as well. Not much more. 64 on FanDuel, 58 on DK. So I like both of those. DJ Moore 6,600 on both sides, so a little bit more. I don't mind DJ Moore. Now, the thing about Jaden Daniels that kind of pisses me off is like early in the week, I was taking Terry McLaurin just to be contrarian, just because I thought nobody would start him. And now that Jaden Daniels is going to play, I think he's going to be in some lineups. So I still like him, even though he's not going to be the contrarian play that I thought he was. 7,000 on FanDuel, 6,900 on DK. I still like that price as well.
Yeah, kind of looking at the Terry McLaurin play, I probably should be more in on him. Like I said, I think it's just personal bias on myself than the actual evaluation. But it's this game outside. I think DJ Moore might have and Keenan Allen might have a tiny bit of ownership. This game's going to go sub 5% down the board. I don't think anybody's paying up for Jaden Daniels. I don't think anybody is paying or playing Caleb Williams, and this is a really exciting matchup. Two rookies, top two overall picks. Both offenses have been really good the last couple weeks, and seems like everybody's missing the boat on it. So I'm in on this week.
Yeah, I don't. The thing I do like about, I guess, the bright side of Jaden Daniels coming back is nobody's going to start. Nobody's going to play him, right? I mean, at 9,000 on FanDuel, 7,300 on DK, nobody's going to start him coming off the injury. Nobody would have been playing him early in the week. So I don't think there's going to be anybody stacking Daniels and Terry McLaurin. So I think that could keep McLaurin's ownership down. So I still like McLaurin as kind of a contrarian play, but I don't know how you start Daniels coming off the injury. That guy could be one hit away from being taken out of the game. So he's way too dangerous at that price.
Yeah, just real quick from Rappaport, DeAndre Hopkins will play significant amount of snaps in Week 8. So there's
Okay.
your answer there.
I like to hear it, especially at 4,900 on DK. I think his ownership is just going to go up and up and up, and I'll probably be a late swap guy too.
Yep.
So I think he will end up with pretty significant ownership. So that is the end of the day games. So that's the end of the DK slate. So now we move on to the last game of the FanDuel slate. That is the Cowboys at the 49ers. Dallas coming off their bye, a 4.5-point road dog. 47-point total in this game. So 25 and 3/4 for San Francisco, 21 and 1/4 for Dallas. Sounds like Debo's going to try and play. National Tight End Day. We got to have some interest in George Kittle. Sounds like he's going to play. How do you want to go after this one?
I like both running backs. Rico Dowdle has quietly gotten there over the last 3 weeks, excluding his bye. And then Jordan Mason is in a smash lineup or smash spot too with all the injuries as far as San Francisco goes. I'm kind of worried this game ends up being ugly and kind of like an under game where both of these teams just can't really get going. I know reports this week they are going to bring up Dalvin Cook, which I doubt he'll be cooking up much of anything, but
Who
we'll
cares?
see. Hopefully he doesn't ruin the Rico Dowdle stuff. I don't think Rico Dowdle is a great player, but as far as the volume's gone, he gets some work in the passing game. It kind of sets up nice, but really worried about Debo, the player. I mean, never had pneumonia. I've heard about it. Doesn't sound like a lot of fun. He's had fluid in his lungs.
It is not.
He's not gonna. Now he's gonna come and play. I just don't want to do that. Jake Ferguson is always a great play. He's not going to get owned at all. He ends up in this mid-price. Let me check. 6,100. Projected 2% ownership, and then George Kittle. No better way to celebrate tight end week with him. He's kind of the last man standing. Ayuk's gone for the year. Debo's got pneumonia. I really, in season long, you got to play him. But as far as,
Yep.
I really don't see him playing. If he is, they've obviously got some really good drugs for him.
Yeah, I have had pneumonia. It is no fun. So I don't know how he's playing a football game 7 days later, if that's the case. They said he woke up with pneumonia last Sunday. So 8 days later, he's playing football.
Right.
And that kind of sucks because like Debo and Kittle have both had big games against Dallas in the past. But, Debo's playing with pneumonia. Kittle's got that foot injury. So I'm kind of nervous about them. I think this is just a smash spot for Jordan Mason. And he's really the kind of only thing I really want in this game because CeeDee Lamb's 9,100. I mean, I'd rather pay $100 more for Jamar Chase.
Yep. Speaking of Jamar Chase, I was going to say T. Higgins not a part of the practice before the game, so it seems like he's going to be out today.
Oh,
so
really? Okay, that's interesting.
Well,
I hope he's inactive for my best ball shares because I drafted a lot of him early in the week. And I do not want a repeat of the Debo Samuel thing where he was active, played 3 snaps, and just didn't do anything. You don't get the sub that way. So definitely hope he's going to be listed as inactive.
Yep. I was going to say, just real quick, the Cowboys coming off the bye, 49ers kind of reeling. I would not be surprised if the Cowboys kind of come out and just blow the 49ers out of the water.
Okay.
Maybe I shouldn't say that because we should never trust the Cowboys, but 49ers are reeling right now. And I just know the defense is fine, but Cowboys coming off a bye, I don't know. I'm very worried about the 49ers overall. Ton of injuries. Juwan Jennings is out this week. Just, I don't know. Times are tough. This game, like a month ago, sounded awesome on paper. Now that it's here, it's like,
Yeah. I will say that these two teams, I bet their season long win totals under heavily. So, I wouldn't mind a tie in this game, to be honest.
There you go.
Awesome.
There you go.
All right. It is that time. Time for flag plants. Who's your first one, Jameson?
Well, I guess in honor of National Tight End today, Travis Kelce scores 2 touchdowns today.
Nice. Like it. My first one is going to be Breece Hall. Like you hit it earlier. Like since Todd Downing took over, his usage has been everything that Breece Hall managers would have wanted. He's totally put Braylon Allen in the dustbin. So love this matchup for him. Tank Bigsby ran wild against his New England defense last week in London. So love the spot for Breece Hall. 7,900 on FanDuel, 73 on DK. He's going to be in most of my lineups, almost all of them.
Yeah. So I agree there. You're going to eat a little bit of a chalk, but I think it's a great play. We know Breece Hall's ceiling. Yep. He's a total monster. So I totally get that. My second one, I'm going to split 2. Like I said earlier, I want to play Joe Mixon, and I'm still going to, but he seems like he's going to have some ownership, so I don't think it's totally fair. And I just want to go Jahmyr Gibbs as well. I know Titans' run defense has been good. He gets some passing down work. I'm worried about Demont and his injury. I thought I lost him for the season last week, and he kind of plays. But I just think the Lions get ahead. He gets a pretty good workload, and nobody's going to play any of this Lions stuff, so I'm all in on the Lions today.
Yeah, like that call as well. My second flag punt's going to be Caleb Williams. There's a lot of good quarterbacks this week, but he is, like I said, he's my in a vacuum quarterback play of the week. Coming off the bye, I mean, he was really cooking before the bye. He had 4 straight really solid weeks, and now he gets the bye week to kind of consolidate things. Washington defense, they've been better than I expected. They've kind of gotten their act together under Dan Quinn, but I still think they're vulnerable, especially in the back end. So. And he's got, like we said earlier, he's got 2 really attractive guys to bring with him in Rome Odunze and Keenan Allen at nice price points. So Caleb Williams, my second flag plant. All right, we've gone a little bit long because we had 13 games today. We had 14 we had to talk about. So we're going a little bit long. But before we go, Jameson, tell everybody where they can find you and what you got going on.
Over on the Twitter machine at Jameson Rules, here every Sunday. And then every Thursday with Joe Harlow and JJ Wenner over at IDP Plus for the Rider Dynasty podcast. And real quick, I apologize for, you can send all the death threats to me today for all the working through the studio. We'll get better, I promise. And I'm telling you right now, I'll let you hit the final button so I don't screw up anything more than I already have today. So I appreciate you all
It's all
tuning in.
good.
And then for you,
Yeah, I mean, for those of you who are new to the show or been with us for a while, we've got new streaming software, new podcast service. So trying to work through the technical bugs a little bit. So bear with us. We'll get it under control. I am Joel Worth at the Joel Worth on Twitter. You can find my IDP, my DFS top plays article on IDP Plus, and you can go to idpplus.com and get 20% off any subscription with the promo code props if you want to get all our tools, all our articles, all our IDP analysis, all our Discord availability. So great option there. And you can also find me doing the Best Ball podcast. Usually drops Wednesday mornings here on the IDP Plus or IDP Bets Network. So if you're into Best Ball, doing the Battle Royales, you can check me out there. Had a really good week last week, put a top 12 team in the Wildcat and a top 10 team in the Extra Point. So had a very profitable week in Best Ball last week. So check that out if you're into that. And check out the Best Balls, or the Best Ball Battle Royal tournaments on Underdog. They are really fun. It's a really fun way to do DFS. That's it for this week. Thank you for checking out Week 8. Have fun. There's a lot of games. We will see you next week for Week 9.